I am what I am. My roots run deep. I bend, I don't break. I'm a man.
Fire Shut Up in My Bones is based off of Charles Blow's memoirs. Charles grew up in a little town called Gibbsland, Louisiana, the youngest of 5 boys. He was always a little different, always a little awkward. And he was, persecuted because of it.
Fire Shut Up in My Bones is a fascinating story. It's about somebody who comes from a very poor background, as Charles did. There was an incident of sexual abuse by a relative, and then it was the journey to deal with this abuse. It inspired Terence to write some really fascinating music, and it was a wonderful libretto by Kasi Lemmons, who was adapting Charles's book and writing her first opera libretto.
Jim Robinson opened my mind to the possibilities. And one of the things he said that really sank in, he said, anything can sing. Once I started to really feel that in my bones, I really embraced that. The trees could sing. And then I took that a step further and said, well, maybe his loneliness could sing. So I got very inspired by the idea that anything could sing and that there was a freedom to the form that maybe I could embrace and really be liberated by.
I said to Terence, the truth of how I saw it, if you guys want to make an opera, it's a different artistic creation. So as long as thematically it is accurate to how I felt about it, as long as it ends properly, that I said, go for it.
Opera is about telling the story to our times. We can still tell the stories of Verdi and Wagner and Mozart because they have something to say today.
Yes.
But it's not the whole story. The whole story is also what people lived in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. And the way a composer who lives now in the 21st century is able to take those stories and relate so closely.
Terence Blanchard is a mad scientist with the melodic and harmonic structures he creates. And obviously you hear that jazz influence, that rhythm and blues, that gospel. And these are musical styles that I grew up with. And I can recognize and pinpoint some things, when I try and play some of it back in the chords. And it's just so easy to sing into.
When you listen to Puccini's La Bohème, that first opening sequence, all of those phrases, may be based off of one tonal harmony. And then all of a sudden it changes. I'm writing more like a jazz musician where you have colors that are changing every 2 bars, like a standard jazz composition. I'm trying to meld that into the tradition of what's been happening in opera.
A lot has changed in this production since we premiered it at Opera Theater St. Louis in 2019. That production was done with a fairly small ensemble. We've expanded that quite a bit. I think we now have an ensemble of 36. Originally it was 12. We now have 12 dancers as opposed to 4 or 5.
They had both male and female dancers in the last production, and I suggested that they be all male dancers because that was what Charles was struggling with in his sexual identity.
Show us what you got!
I definitely knew that I wanted to do a step dance. And I thought that that was especially important here because we are talking about being inside of the Metropolitan Opera where at one point Black people were not allowed to be on the stage. And we're talking about a step that is coming from the African diaspora, coming from a rich history. So to have that type of dance on the Metropolitan stage for me is a big moment.
I'm excited about Will Liverman because, first of all, his voice is amazing.
Will Liverman is one of the most promising emerging artists of his generation. He's wonderfully suited to doing this because he certainly has the vocal chops, but he also brings a real sincerity to everything that he does on stage. Having Latonia Moore in the role of Billy is a real coup for the Met. Latonia did an extraordinary job in Porgy and Bess as Serena. Having her take on this role of this very strong mother is going to be a real powerhouse. And Angel Blue, that's such luxury casting.
I didn't know that I was going to be the first African-American to have a production at the Met. I didn't know that. So when this journalist told me that, he said, "How's it feel?" I went, I had no idea. And it's still like a very powerful notion because My answer has always been to that question. It's overwhelming and it's a huge honor, but I know I'm not the first African-American qualified to have been in this position.
I'm super proud of Terence and what he's doing and the opportunity to give words to his music and to give words to Charles' book, his beautiful book.
Most of us are still who we grew up as. And so I am still a boy from a nowhere place in the world who was very worried that this place that I was writing about is so small and so insignificant in the grand scheme of things that no one would actually care about this little place. And so to see first the book do well and then to have the Met say it is grand enough to grace our stage, it's just an awesome thing.
People are going to be in our auditorium and they're going to recognize vaguely the shape and form of an opera that they know, but it's completely new music, new angle, and telling a story that hasn't been told in our house, which I feel is amazing.
I want to make sure that the shoulders that I'm standing on of the people who have come before me will be proud by what we do. You know, I want all of those composers, you know, who are living and who are not here, to be honored by what it is that we put on the stage, because it's because of them that I'm here doing this. And when you have that coming at you, man, you take it very seriously, you know, because this is something that can help propel some other little kids forward into wanting to become composers, you know? And that's my hope, that's my dream. You know, I may be the first, but I definitely don't want to be the last, that's for sure.